I'm Judith Lay, welcoming you to the podcast of the Manx Sky at Night with Howard Parkin.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Well, there's our familiar music that tells us it is time to say "Fast am I, Howard Parkin."
Fast am I, Judith. It's great to be here as usual.
Well, it's lovely to welcome you back in, Howard. And strangely enough, considering you've had such a tremendous experience since the last time we were doing this programme, you look surprisingly unchanged.
Thank you, Judith. But yes, it was an amazing trip we had.
Well, of course, we are talking about you going to see the eclipse.
Indeed.
And, well, how does it rate? Because you have seen an eclipse before.
I've seen three. This is the third one I've seen now. And unfortunately, this one was a bit cloudy. But it meant we saw things we didn't see on previous ones. What was the most stunning bit of it was it went pitch black, and I mean pitch black. I was actually working at a hotel. I was actually being an eclipse host, and I was commentating on it, and I noticed it didn't just go black, it went yellowy black, and then black as the ace of spades. Literally, it was absolutely amazing. We saw what we call first contact when you first see the partial eclipse. We saw the diamond ring, which is the spectacular bit where you just get this flash of sunlight just before totality. And then at that point, it started to cloud over. But it went so dark, it was unbelievable. And because we couldn't see the solar disk and the solar corona and all the features you see in a solar eclipse, we were all looking around more. Oh, and it was so spooky. You can understand, you really, really can understand why ancient peoples were terrified of these things. And, in awe of the natural phenomena, the sunlight all of a sudden, and you don't notice the darkness until literally, we were obviously looking for it, but I kept looking around to see when the light level changed, and it was only literally about 4% of the sun was still visible, and then you suddenly notice this strange, eerie sort of darkness. Even now, telling you, it puts the back of my neck goes up. I think it was just amazing. And yes, it was a little disappointing we didn't see the spectacular sun being eclipsed in a blue sky, which was predicted for where we were in Texas. Ironically, the other side of America got it in perfect clear skies, so they got it. But having seen one previously in America 2017 and then in Turkey in 2006, it was nice to have the different experience. And everyone there enjoyed every moment of it. And it was just a fantastic trip. And Texas, what a place. Texas, I've come to a conclusion, Texas is not a state in the United States. It's an independent country with everything different, bold and brash and big, and it was amazing.
So would you say Texas isn't a place, it's a way of life?
Yes, absolutely right. Everything was just so huge and everyone's so friendly and all the rest. I will be honest with you, we were a bit nervous about the guns. We thought people would be carrying guns around everywhere, which you hear about, don't you? Didn't see a one. The only gun I saw was on a policeman's belt, who was watching the eclipse with us, actually, so I managed to get a picture with him and me wearing my Alaman t-shirt, of course.
Well, I have to say, Howard, that thank you very much indeed for taking the trouble to send us a report straight from minutes after it had happened.
It was.
And we played this on the news, we all listened to it, and the atmosphere was great because what was lovely was hearing other people in the background and hearing the youngster.
That's right. I didn't even know they'd done that till I heard it back.
Yeah.
Because I just set my phone on record and just left it out there for about 5 minutes or so during the period of totality, and that was what we got. And I was so pleased when I was able to send it you, and you were able to use it on air.
Well, this is the great thing about making good use of technology.
Absolutely.
I mean, it would have been great to wait for you to come in now and to talk about it, but to have that immediacy and say, here's Howard, he's there, he's watching it.
Manx Radio's man on the scene. But I've said before, when I see an eclipse, I struggle to talk because it's just so mind-blowingly awesome. I hate that word awesome, but it really is appropriate.
The question now is, where are you going to chase the next one?
August the 12th, 2026 in Spain. I've got plans to possibly arrange a trip from the island, maybe that others could be involved with. I'm talking to a couple of people about that at the moment, but obviously if that does happen, I'll be in touch and let people know, because there's been so much interest about it. The eclipse path of the one we've just seen, I think was the most populated area. It went right across from the bottom of the United States, from Mexico, right across Texas, and right out through the Great Lakes and Newfoundland. As I say, they all got the good weather at the top of America, and we had the lousy weather in Texas. But never mind.
Well, yeah, but you always say that there's a certain amount of luck
This is it.
in this. But I tell you what we have done this time. Well, certainly speaking for myself, we've learned a lot more about how it works and how there is an eclipse path. Things that I knew
Right.
that it goes dark and, the basic kind of thing about it. But I didn't realise there was a path that
very
it
much.
travels and all. So we've learned a lot more.
Well-
And I know at least one other person from the island who planned their holiday around
It.
the
Good
the
on them.
eclipse.
I hope they
I'm-
had a good, successful viewing of it.
I'm not sure whereabouts they were on the path, but I think it was somewhere in the United States. But Spain, that is a little nearer, you could very well get quite a bit of interest from the island.
Well, this one goes right almost down the coast of Ireland. It goes from Iceland, Greenland, Iceland, down to northern Spain, and then goes out into Majorca. And what is going to be strange about this one? The moon will cover the sun, and the sun will be totally eclipsed. Then, when the eclipse ends and the moon moves away from it, 10 minutes later the sun's going to set. So we're going to get darkness, then light, and then darkness again. What the animals will do is beyond thoughts.
Well, yes, because they do say that the animals are very
Oh,
disturbed.
very disturbed. We had turkey vultures flying overhead before totality, and all of a sudden they all disappeared. We didn't hear any noise, which was a disappointment. I wanted to hear some noise, or cattle, or chickens, or cockerels, or something. But the birds just disappeared. And it went so quiet. I mean, we were all there talking and shouting and cheering and raising our glasses and everything else. But there was an eerie silence about the whole place. This was 1:30 in the afternoon.
And
Oh,
birds
very
would be
much.
very, very sensitive, particularly birds who
Well,
spend all their
birds,
time in
but
the
I
air.
believe I actually did a lecture about this the night before at the hotel I was at, and I did a bit about nature, and there's so many stories about nature and how animals get totally confused. And yet some animals, they reckon they know about it hours before it happens. There is some suspicion that some animals react to the eclipse before it even starts being an eclipse.
There would probably be some air pressures or change in
Yeah, I
air
don't know,
quality
it's
or
weird.
currents, because the birds rely on currents and things, don't they?
It's an amazing phenomenon. And I said before, and I'll no doubt say it again, if you ever get the opportunity to see one, please do. They're unbelievable.
Well, if you'd like to go to Spain with Howard, Howard Parkin at Manx.net.
That's
Right,
it.
here's something completely different. This is from Sam Green. He sent you an
Sam.
email.
Hi, Sam.
Sam says, after the eclipse a few weeks ago, knowing Howard had travelled to Texas, this is Sam writing now, knowing that Howard had travelled to Texas to view the eclipse, I took a look on his Facebook page to see if there were any reports or pictures. Whilst there, I noticed he said he'd studied at Padgate College. This was a couple of minutes from where I live, writes
Wow.
Sam, who hails from Warrington.
Fernhead, Warrington,
He says
probably.
the nearest pub was the Farmer's Arms.
That's right.
On Fernhead Lane, a
Yeah.
5-minute walk from the college, and was always the place to find students from the college.
Indeed it was.
So, ask Howard, did he ever visit the Farmer's Arms?
Frequently. I was a regular. Absolutely right. Well done.
Spot on, Sam. Spot
Yes,
on.
It was a great spot. And I met my wife at Padgate and college. And we
You didn't meet her in the Farmer's Arms.
No, but I did go to the Farmer's
You did-
Arms on more than one occasion, I can tell you.
You pair know how to live the high life. Sam, thank you very much
Thank
indeed
you,
for
Sam.
that. We always like to hear from you, and the answer is yes. He was a regular at the Farmer's Arms on Fernhead Lane in Padgate. Great memories for you, Howard.
Absolutely.
Lovely. Right, okay. From eclipses and trips to the Farmer's Arms, let's talk about the Manx sky.
Absolutely.
What's going on?
Well, it's that time of the year where, of course, the sky gets lighter and lighter and lighter as the sun goes down, obviously later and later each night. So there's not a lot of observational astronomy you can do. That said, we had those wonderful constellations of winter, which I infused about over the winter months. But the other night was a beautiful. We've had some good nights recently. In the last week since I've been back, we've had quite a few decent nights. And you can't miss the 3 very bright stars in the constellations of Leo, Virgo and Boötes. And anybody who knows where the plough is, if you can't find the plough, it's overhead. It's overhead now. It's moved from its position on the horizon in autumn, and it's now overhead. Just follow the handle of the plough down, and you'll come to a very bright star called Arcturus in the constellation Boötes. Follow that same line down, you come to the star Spica in Virgo. And then to the right of Spica, you've got Leo. And these three constellations, these three bright stars, the principal star in each of those constellations, really are the brightest stars we see in the spring. We have 3 very bright stars in our spring sky compared to 11 in our winter sky. And I've mentioned this before. But it's a great time of the year to... It's not as cold, so you can get outside. Yes, you'll still see the Milky Way if there's no moon around. Obviously, the moon is now heading back up. It just was full last week, because, of course, 2 weeks after the eclipse. It's always an eclipse when there's a new moon. So you need to be looking, if you want to see the Milky Way, you'll see that each side of the new moon. And, you know, it amazed me when I was away, the amount of people, American people in particular, who said to me they'd never seen the Milky Way. And they just don't see it because of the light pollution. And that's another bugbear, which, of course, is a subject I won't go on about now. But suffice to say that I'm still doing some work on that. And I still have high hopes that there'll be some more developments on that in the not too distant future.
It's a tricky one.
Big cities, it's just there's far too much light around.
There's some places where it's never dark.
It's absolutely. Places like New York and places like that where they just have the lights on all the time. And I have a theory, and I've never read this anywhere, but I have a theory. We are, as a species on this planet, frightened of the dark. We're always brought up, and there's bogies and monsters under the bed, and some kids want the light leaving on. It's built into our psyche. We don't like the dark, so subconsciously we want more lights. And yet, darkness is so important for the circadian rhythm of our bodies, for nature, for everything else, and not just us astronomers who want to see the wonders of the night sky.
That's very interesting. I wouldn't have thought that.
First thing we do when you walk into a room, we put the light on.
But in my case, it's so I don't trip over something, because I can trip over my own shadow,
It does help if you don't fall over, of course, as I know to my cost.
Oh dear, this is all going a bit haywire, isn't it? So come on, what else that we need to be aware of in the Manx sky?
The other thing I tell you about, it's a non-event really. We've had a profusion of planets in the sky over the winter months. We had Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars and Venus, all visible at various times of the last few months. They've all gone. All the planets have disappeared. You've got Mars and Saturn visible in the morning sky about 3 and 4 o'clock respectively, but the other planets are all too near the sun to be seen, which brings me back lovely to the eclipse again, because I didn't see it because it was cloudy, but I understood you could see every single planet during the eclipse if you knew where to look. They're all congregated near the sun. You had Jupiter one side, Saturn the other, and Venus the other side, and Mars and Neptune and Jupiter and Mercury the other side. That was a disappointment. I didn't see that, but it would only have been a fleeting glimpse. But that's why we're not seeing them in our night sky. They're all too close to the sun, and we won't have any planets for a little while. But that means we have got the chance to see, obviously, the stars, the Milky Way and all the rest. And if anyone's interested, there's a very bright star in the sky called Antares. Antares is known as the rival of Mars. Antares means rival of Mars. The moon is going to go directly underneath that on the 26th of May. So look out for that. You'll see a bright star, quite red in colour, probably the reddest star you ever see in the sky. And that's why it's called Antares. It's a rival of Mars, because Mars, of course, is the red planet. And Mars does rise about 3 o'clock in the morning and will be slowly rising earlier and earlier. And by the time we get to the autumn, Mars will be dominating our evening skies as it heads towards opposition, when it's the opposite side of the sun to the Earth, in January 2025.
And you know, as you say, no planets visible, but this is the time when the evenings are going to get mild enough, the later nights are going to get mild enough for us to get out our garden chair and just look at the stars.
Just look up at the stars and have a view of them and just be amazed by them. We have got a meteor shower visible on the 6th of May, the Eta Aquarids shower, which is actually remnants of Halley's Comet, which comes around every 76 years, and that peaks around the 6th of May. Realistically, it comes from the constellation Aquarius, hence the name, the star Eta, the 5th brightest star in the constellation of Aquarius. So you really need to be looking after midnight for that one. So if you're up after midnight, if you don't mind the dark, go outside after midnight and look for towards the eastern horizon and see if you see any Eta Aquarid meteors, which you can think to yourself, they come from Halley's Comet, which whizzes around every 76 years, which is one of those ironic things, because obviously 70 years and 10 is the lifespan of human, or used to be thought of as that, and Halley's Comet has the same cycle. It won't be back till 2061, so I'm probably not going to see it, but you can trace it back in history right back to 1066 and indeed beyond.
Fascinating, absolutely
it's
fascinating.
Amazing what you can look up.
Now, this holiday has definitely changed you, Howard.
It has.
Because normally you have a song that's got stars or planets or something very strongly in the lyric or it's about the moon or something like that. Not so this week.
Not tonight.
Not
No,
so. You're on the
definitely not.
Tennessee whiskey. Now,
Absolutely.
This has got to be a result of your holiday.
It is. This is our trip to Nashville, of course. We went to not just the eclipse, but we went to the Mississippi and Nashville and all the rest. And the music of that part of America is amazing. And we heard this song. It is a country music song. And we fell in love with it. It's the anthem of our trip to America.
Ah, well, that's lovely. It's my pleasure to play for you now, Howard. Chris Stapleton and Tennessee Whiskey.
Used to spend my nights out in ballroom. Liquor was the only love I'd known. But you rescued me from reaching for the bottom and brought me back, being too far gone. You're as smooth as Tennessee whiskey. You're as sweet as strawberry wine. You're as warm as a glass of brandy. And honey, I stay stoned on your love all the time. I've looked for love in all the same old places. Found the bottom of the bottle's always dry. But when you poured out your heart, I didn't waste it. 'Cause there's nothing like your love to get me high. And you're as smooth as Tennessee whiskey. You're as sweet as strawberry wine. You're as warm as a glass of brandy. And honey, I stay stoned on your love all the time.
I have to tell you, gentle listener, that Howard Parkin was back in Nashville, singing along to that one. It's a great track. It's a great track. I think we'll definitely put that in the Sundown selection. We'll play that for you and for Mrs. Parkin in full, because it's quite a long track.
It is quite
And
long.
we've got lots of things to talk about, haven't we?
We have indeed. Lots
Right.
going on.
You are listening to the April edition of the Manx Sky at Night here on Manx Radio with Howard Parkin in the studio. And Howard, we should be up in space now, shouldn't we? So
We most
have
certainly
you got
should.
anything to tell us about
Well, I
that?
have a lovely little story for you because one of the things I did when I was away, I managed to get myself an invitation to the NASA place at Johnson Space Centre. And I got myself a VIP visit because I knew someone who'd worked there previously. So I had this visit. We were meant to go to Mission Control, but it was closed. It was closed because they were having a rehearsal for the Starliner launch, which is taking place on the 6th of May. So we could only go in the viewing room. We couldn't actually go into the control room itself, which is, how dare they? But seriously, on that note, that was an amazing place to visit, incidentally. But the Starliner which the Boeing spacecraft which is going to be used as a space taxi, if you like, to use that expression, to take people up to the International Space Station and back. You may recall we talk about Dragon and SpaceX using their Dragon. They started launching back in 2020 during COVID. It was one of the highlights of COVID in space. Well, Boeing have had all sorts of problems. Anyway, their final manned test flight, it's actually got a man and a woman going up on it, on the 6th of May is taking place, as I say, 6th of May. So that'll be all over the news. So watch out for that one in the next few weeks. The other story, of course, is Voyager 1, the spacecraft that is so very, very far away from us. They lost contact with it. It was sending back gibberish. It was sending back nothing but meaningless data, ones and zeros in binary code, totally incoherent. They fixed it. They sent a man out with a tool bag. It flew all the way out there, fixed it, and came back again.
No.
Well, it would be April the 1st if he'd done that. But they managed to fix it. They sent a computer fix. One of the computers had a communications problem, and they managed to use one of the other computers. They sent a signal to this other computer to tell it to do something. I don't think it was turn it on and turn it back off again. It might have been something as simple as that, but they'd worked out how to fix it. It took them 6 months, but they've now got Voyager 1 working again, which is incredible when you think this spacecraft was launched in 1977. Have you got a computer that was made in 1977? No. A car even. Yes, some people have vintage and veteran cars, and good luck to them, and they're fantastic. But remember, this spacecraft was launched in 1977. It hasn't had a human hand near it since. And yet they've managed to fix it. And it takes 22 hours for a signal, travelling at the speed of light, 22 hours to send this instruction to it, and 22 hours to get it back. I understand what they've done now. They've now tested it. It's working. They've got meaningful communications, and now they're hoping to resume the data stream of data telling us what life is like. Or not life, but what the circumstances are way out in deep space, beyond the edge of our solar system, in what we call interstellar space. So it's just an incredible story. I have a lecture on this. I call it Ad Astra, to the Stars. And this is a great footnote to add to my lecture, because it's just an amazing achievement. 1977 to 2024, and we're still going strong. They think it's got a radioactive generator. I've forgotten the isotopic generator, something like that they call it. And they understand that's only got enough energy, or enough ability to give it energy for another 3 or 4 years. So they will lose it soon. But still, what an incredible achievement.
The whole thing is just, it leaves you speechless with admiration that, first of all, that something could be created such a long time ago and still be functioning perfectly, and that they can fix it remotely.
That's what's amazing. I thought it was dead. I thought, oh, good luck. It's been a great ambassador. It and its cousin, its sister spacecraft, Voyager 2, are both still working, or were both still working. And we thought, well, we've lost Voyager 1. We've still got 2, and we've still got New Horizons, which is another spacecraft. But no, they've managed to get back to it. So the little spacecraft that won't say die on itself. Amazing.
There's an awful lot of things up there that just won't give up, because this is not the first thing you've told us about that they've managed to fix. There was the little rover. The little rover got itself all upset and confused, didn't it? But then it started working again.
Managed to get that fixed as well. So amazing.
And it really is. And this is, I guess this demonstrates one of the points that's made about space exploration, is that in doing all of these things, they learn so much more about technology and all the rest of it that can be applied here on Earth to massive effect.
Exactly. That's why it's never wasted, all this money we spend on space travel and space exploration, because there's so much we learn from it and so much we develop from it. I'm sorry, going back on with my trip, but what amazed me, I was in Houston, obviously, and I was talking to them when I had the trip around NASA. Who's the biggest employer down here? Oh, the petrochemical industry by far has about 75,000 people working there. Second biggest employer in the area is NASA at 26,000 people. 26,000 people work in this place, all to do with space. And from there, they devised the means by which to send men to the moon, and women obviously into space, and spacecraft to outer solar system. And that's all come from, well, not just from Houston, obviously it's come from all around the world, but this is the headquarters of it for NASA.
So which do you think are the countries that most interest you when it comes to space exploration in the future?
I think the Americans have just announced they've got problems with the funding for their Mars return spacecraft, the Mars sample return spacecraft, and they've asked for the private industry to come up with means by which they can save 11 billion is the cost to bring samples back from Mars. That's the figure. And NASA saying, whoa, we can't afford that. can someone help? And they're looking at SpaceX in particular. And I think they're going to. I think there's a very real chance that SpaceX will help them. But in the meantime, China are striving and moving ahead with their own space exploration program. And I think China are the new space, I won't say the kings of the space industry, because America, I think, will always have that title. But China is certainly striving ahead. They've just launched back up to their space station the other day, and they're really going ahead with it. And they're saying they're going to bring samples back from Mars by 2033, which is possibly going to be before the Americans do it. So that won't go down well. They might find the money somehow. We'll wait and see.
It really would be better if everybody cooperated and
Well, it
shared
would.
their brain power, their money, wouldn't it, really?
Well,
I mean, it's going to be difficult, but it
is,
would
but
be.
with that in mind, there's one thing that I'm really gratified about, and that's the Russians and the Americans are still working together on the space station. Despite the problems in Ukraine and everything else, they made a decision very, very early on in the Ukraine crisis. No, we're not going to abandon everything. We're going to carry on, and we're going to carry on working together. We may not have the same political ideologies and everything else, but the astronauts are being professional up there, the cosmonauts are being professional up there, and they're still working very comfortably together. In fact, again, I saw this when I was across, and it's gratifying to see that scientists and people with a common interest in a subject, in space in this matter, can still work together despite the political differences in their countries. It would be great if China were involved as well internationally. I mean, we've all seen The Martian and things like that where the Chinese helped them. But if we all cooperate in different walks of life, then wouldn't the world be a better place?
Oh, it would. It would. And I'm not going to say a word about it being World Alien Day last week. I'm not going to say anything about that. I will just mention that there have been a couple of appreciative messages up on the screen here from people who liked Tennessee Whiskey.
Oh, brilliant.
That Chris Stapleton's track seems to have gone down very nicely.
Oh, that's nice
but
to know.
also one person who I think knows you quite well has said, that visit to NASA where they wouldn't let you in, that they'd restrict the area that you could go to because they said that they were testing out some equipment. Might it not have been that they'd said, we better be careful of this Howard Parkin fellow. He may come in and touch the buttons and set us, because he knows which button to press to launch the space.
Oh, I never thought of that.
Do you think that's...
No, I think, well, we could see them actually. It was what was fascinating. You could actually stand there and watch them talking to the different people and all this stuff. It was really a hive of industry, I tell you.
I guess no matter how little you saw, you would get the atmosphere of it,
very
and you
much
would
so.
it
Really
would be
was
worthwhile.
a privilege, and I was delighted.
Right.
My last story, they're hoping to launch the next Starship 4, on its next test mission next month in May. So hopefully between now and our next broadcast, I'll be able to tell you all about that at the end of May.
Howard, we will look forward to it. Thank you for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
We will look forward to welcoming you back on the final Sunday in the month of May for another look at the Manx
look forward
sky
to it.
at night.
Thanks, Judith.
Faster my Howard.
Faster my Judith.